Might as well start with laughter, right? Welcome everyone to Fire and Water, the podcast. I forgot to say all of these things, I think, in our last podcast, so I'm going to follow our format just a little bit more. Welcome everyone. This is a podcast that Quinita Robertson and I, Tennyson Wolf, offer as a bit of a thinking out loud and a bit of a learning out loud. A bit of an offering into people who are trying to learn some similar things. It's coming of age in this age. We, as always, are seeking to cultivate within ourselves and others a sense of wisdom, a sense of soulfulness. So today, we're here again, Quinita, you and I, and we've decided that we're going to explore the topic a little bit of deserving.
Yes. Yeah. So Tennyson and I, we were talking a little bit ago, and I was telling you I've been watching the Extreme Home Makeover show, which I love. People who know me know that at times I consider that one of my forms of church. I think because there's sacred moments in the show. One is when the people first come together and go up to the house, and it's the Williams family, come on out. And then the family comes out, and that's one. And then when they get to witness them tearing down the house, it's the moment of like, there's a death and rebirth, place in that moment that I think is sacred if you look at the people's faces. And then the last one is the move that bus moment, because the house is always bigger and more than they could have ever imagined. And what I've been struck by, because I guess it's on Hulu again, or Hulu now, I don't know if it's been all the time, but I found it recently. I've been struck by how many times they speak of the people being deserving of this. Like, one of the things that I actually really loved about the show the first time through that I watched it is that they chose families who were struggling, but who were also helping other people. So I was carrying some of that story of deserving in me, like this kind of line of, oh, I'm glad they pick people who are, doing good things in the world and all that kind of stuff. And what I'm struck by now is this whole idea that maybe we should get rid of the word deserving. That there's an idea of like, we have to earn, or we have to be worthy of something, of kindness, of grace, of help, of support, that I think is doing more harm than good. So I'll just start with that, put that in the center.
Okay, I'm going to pick it up and try to play with it a little bit. I do love it that you can make such meaning out of that show. I watched that show, I remember 20 years or so ago, I think. And, seeing the things that you're describing and being moved by it and all of that. So yay that I feel like I need to go back to that show. I feel like I need to watch some episodes, right, in the way that you're describing it. And then we're in this language of deserving, because as you and I were talking earlier, Quinita, it's like, what does that even mean? The commentary on the show, there's such a deserve. What does it even mean? And I love the way that you picked this up at a deeper layer. As we were talking before, there was a little bit excuse me, a little bit of some things are just because you're here, because you're human. It counters a message that's been pretty strong in me, that I've liked to have thought that I've held in a healthy way, but actually it's got some pretty unhealthy stuff in it too. You have to earn, you have to earn your place. You have to earn your keep. That just breeds a whole pile of things that maybe have their place in some way, but also are just run amok, like a competitiveness, for example, or got to be smarter than kind of thing. So how like the overimposed message of you are not enough, but must earn, has such a sideways message and shadow in it. What about also the alternative stories of you belong just as you are. You are enough just as you are. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Let me pause there. Yeah.
I think it actually feeds into this whole underlying lining belief in disposable people.
Mm.
I think it's like the beginnings of that. Like, like because we can say, oh, well, they don't matter because, right? It's like it's another way of othering other,
Mm-hmm.
or even the whole story of, well, if they just worked harder, or if they just did, A, B, or C.
Yeah, and it's like 1,000 variations of that,
Yes.
right? If they
Yes.
just, if you just, if I
Yes.
just.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so that piece about like, where is where's the holding of just that our birthright? We're just deserving of love and care and support because we're here on this earth
Mm-hmm.
together. Like where does that come up? Where do we hold that? And again, like I said, when I first really years ago, it was about 20 years ago, I think it was like 2003 or something that the show came out. One of the things I loved about it is that they chose people who were, you know, um, even in their hardship, helping others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And generous in that way. And now I'm holding that in a different way. Maybe it's, my own maturity, um, and asking myself, like, where is it that I've assumed
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not deserving of X,
Yeah.
Y, or Z?
Yeah.
Or that I think I can make the call on if you are or someone else is deserving or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what even makes me think that I have the right to choose that?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. There's some kind of slippery slope in there for me of it comes back to the earning, like you have to earn your place. And I realize as I'm saying that out loud, there's an inner voice in me that's saying, well, wait a minute, you do have to earn your place, right? So I'm willing to play with circumstances where, of course, we value our contributions. Our contributions are important, but it's somehow the overarching framing of that puts us into lines of yes or no kind of stuff that feels incredibly unhealthy or punishing, or like broadly perpetuated over decades/centuries in a way that so diminishes the some other reality of the power of life, the power of spirit. Mm. It's so easy to slide into the must earn. You're deserving is something you have to prove yourself on.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I was thinking about is how much church has
Mm-hmm.
perpetuated that.
Mm-hmm.
That they're good people, that we have to earn our way into heaven, that
Mm-hmm.
God as a vengeful God instead of just a loving God,
Mm-hmm.
all of those messages. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember at one point it struck me, like, especially from Christians, if Christians really believe that
Mm-hmm.
Jesus died for our sins, why are we still paying for them? It's like, if like that, like, I think of James Baldwin saying that, our crowns have been bought and paid for. All we have to do is put them on. If you really do think that the price has already been paid, then why do we think we have to keep paying?
Mm-hmm.
And like, for me, um, my view of God is just love.
Mm-hmm.
And so, love, yes, it values and honors your contribution.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a pride, I guess, or proud of, right? when someone you love and care about does something that, I'll say honoring, that is honoring of life. um, and there's also this, just you're loved just because you are.
Mhm.
And I've asked my coaching clients at times, I'll ask the question, okay, so if you didn't do another thing,
Mhm.
could you still be okay with yourself? Could you still
Mhm.
just love yourself? If you can do
Mhm.
one more thing this lifetime.
Yeah, can I pick up there?
Mhm.
I can feel the excitement of that too, Juanita, and a lot of the conversations that I'm in recently, playing with themes and things that are just real right now. I notice that I'm pulling myself and others into a celebratory energy. Like I want that kind of energy. So in a coaching situation, it might sound like, what do you think is just absolutely right now, or absolutely right about you right now? Um, and yeah, I don't want to get too trippy with the language, because you can even follow that into some places like, well, embedded in that question is even an assumption about right or earning or deserving. I know that there's a different feeling of when if you magically strip away the deserving energy, let's say, there's a different feeling for me. Like, oh my gosh, it feels more open-hearted. It feels a little bit open-bellied. Um, Super appreciative is, excuse me, how I experience that. Relieving, and that alone, just to name the relieving, I think, if we pretend for a moment that there's a cultural pattern that is holding the tension of deserving, in such a way that even naming the relief of removing deserving is a real thing, is a powerful thing. Holy smokes, that says something. So I notice I've been trying to pull myself, or hold myself, gift myself into just a celebratory vibe that I think has got something to do with this stripping away the layers of deserving.
I was talking with a coaching client recently, and she was talking about how she's just has this inner critic, like this,
Mm.
and how she wanted to let go of this inner critic and to be more in the appreciation and the gratitude and the joy.
Mhm.
And really, she was struck by, she says, I'm realizing that it's just a choice.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, and that piece, and we're, it's just, we had a little bit of conversation about that, how like it's just as simple as her choosing not to
Mm.
be in the critic,
Mhm.
and so in her choice, the first thing that happens is she starts to notice more and more when she's in the critic,
Yeah. Right.
because you can't, like, it doesn't flip overnight. So she starts to notice. One of the questions I asked her was,
Mm.
so who in your life are supports who will remind you? She
Mhm.
shared, I'm trying to release the inner critic and trying to
Mhm.
open to more of the joy and the gratitude. Who will remind you when you step off of that and can
Right.
encourage you of who you really are and who you say you want to be, you know?
Right.
And noticing, like, for herself, once she notices herself, when she starts noticing she's being critical, she in that moment can speak the new choice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not how I want to hold this. I want to hold it in this way. So
Right.
that she starts to rewire her own brain
Yeah.
in that process.
Yeah. It's interesting image, right? Rewire the brain, or it's like, you add some blood to the heart.
Yes.
There's something going on there that welcomes a different way of being with one another. I know when we talk this way, Juanita, I love to go to the big stories and the big mysteries of it all, and the mystical qualities even of it all. But so, in this example, it's like, what does it look like to live in a world where we strip away some of the shoulds, those kinds of gotchas, all of that kind of stuff? Like, what comes alive in the heart, and how that changes, what we contribute to in the world. But then I love pulling it down too in the way that you're describing, because we're human beings trying to, as someone spoke earlier today with me, to be in the work of being in this walk on earth. It's all that bigger story. And then there's just like simple things, how are you being kind to yourself today? How are you being kind to your neighbor today? How are you living the experiment, as you described, of not living the deserved story and narrative? Like, just how's it going? And yeah, I'll remind you of that, as your friend, kind of stuff. I love it when it pulls down to just those layers.
Yeah. And when we look at and connect the inner to the outer, like one of the things that came up in this conversation too, that she spoke about, she's been making choices that are more loving for herself. And what she's noticed is her relationships are showing up in ways that are more loving.
Yeah.
Because again, what's inner is reflected from the outer and vice versa, right? So like what's happening on the outer can give us clues of what we're really believing on the inner.
Yeah.
So we think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
We think that I have these belief systems because I experience all this stuff on the outer.
Yeah.
Instead of, no. You have this inner belief and the universe wants to prove you right. So it sends you these experiences.
Yeah.
To prove those belief systems right. And, I think that there's a part of us that doesn't want to know we have that kind of power, because then we have to do some of the release and forgiveness for ourselves of not knowing what we didn't know when we didn't know it.
Yeah, I'm trying to connect this back to another part of the conversation that you and I had earlier today. I had shared with you that I took probably 10 years worth of little notebooks that I've carried, little moleskin notebooks where, I've made notes, I've made insights, I've written questions, I've written the names of people at events and things. It's the system that works for me. So I've got all of these important notebooks, and I decided on the weekend that I'm not going to really go back and look at those. So I'm going to take them to the fire and burn them. And I was sharing that I had some grief in doing that too. Like, they were not easy things to burn. In the moment, it somehow felt right to be able to do it. But then there's this grief that has shown up after for me about, well, who am I without those notebooks? And who am I without those thoughts? And somehow that led us back into the language here of who we think we are with each other, people in general, and what we try to open ourselves to. And I think some of that was around, like, these were your words, Juanita. You said something about many people can't imagine the gift that is waiting to come by release. Now, in my case, I'm talking about my notebooks, and I do feel the loss of those. But we're also talking about the release of a story. Let go of the deserving blah, 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 and welcome ourselves into what I like to think of as like a potent now.
Yeah, I think that, part of that deserving story means that some things aren't for me if I don't feel I'm deserving, right? Some things are for me, some things aren't for me. And I think that, what a framework of control.
Yeah.
I've shared before in another podcast that we did, talking about the, like, not thinking, even considering first class before, like flying first class, right? Because it wasn't for me. Now, I wouldn't have said that I felt like I didn't deserve it, right? Like, if somebody asked me, I wouldn't have said, oh, of course, no, I don't feel that way. But there was a part of me that was holding that. That's what's in the background of it, right? Because I think it's like, in God as a Black Woman, where she talks about time, it's another one of those frameworks that operates in the background that keeps us all in our place. And whether that place is that, oh, you better keep working and keep going, and you're not working hard enough, or you don't have value, whether that's the place, or whether the place is that, like I said, this is for other people, it's not for you. That place, it's still first class or whatever, right? Something that we think is beyond what's for us, or that we think is audacious, right? The things in our life that we think, oh, it would be so audacious of me to do this. It's only audacious if you don't think it's yours in the first place. And so even that whole, the language that we have around this whole piece of that keeps us in there of, no pain, no gain. That's the thing. Like, if you put up, you do the hard work, then you're deserving of the gain, right? If you, anything worth having is worth working for, that whole piece about, that's deserving language as well. I was talking with one of my elders at one point in my house, and I wrote a blog post about the kid Markeith, and it was, he used to come and take out my trash from the back of the house to the front on trash day, and I would give him a couple of dollars. And Jojo Pa was sitting at my kitchen table, and she said that particular day, "Oh, I think you need to give him 5." And I remember thinking at the time, well, he just started coming, and I even said to her, after he's come a couple times, I'll give it to him kind of as a reward, right? Like, you've done good work here, and she says, no, that's the problem with our social service systems already, that we so treat people like they have to earn it instead of they just deserve it. They just get it because they are. What if the deserving of whatever you want to put in the blank is just because we are? Now, that doesn't mean, I want to say one thing, that doesn't mean that one of the things we used to say to our children is, we didn't as much believe in punishment as much as you can have as much responsibility or freedom as you can hold, as you can hold the responsibility for. So I think the universe, there's a natural kind of progression or things that show up sometimes about, are you capable of holding the responsibility of this? Whatever it is that you want. Now, that's different to me than deserving. Do you have the capacity?
Yeah, I'm trying to sort that a little bit in my brain and heart right now, because there's a lot of energy to me in the freedom that comes with an inherent belonging. And it gets trickier for me when I think about things like this weekend. I planted some tomatoes and a few flowers in my yard here. Excuse me. I had to do some things for that to be accomplished. So I don't know how to tie that into the deserving. There's something about things, and then there's something about inherent qualities. So where I feel like the greatest value of stripping away the earn your keep narrative, the deserving narrative, is on things on essential qualities. Love. You deserve, like every look at the sentence there, right? Everyone deserves to be loved. There's a belonging, there's an enough. You are enough as a human being, or there's some way in which you're just enough as a human being. Being is all that matters. Now, of course, we live our lives in ways that has jobs and friendships and other relationships and things like that, where, we have a certain commitment with one another, and sometimes that gets navigated and negotiated, and sometimes it gets defaulted to. But to me, like the gold in all of this is some of these most fundamental qualities of being loved, being welcomed, being enough, And when those exist as a baseline, so instead of the you're not loved, you're not enough, it's not enough to just be. When you shift the baseline into you are enough, you are loved, your being is beautiful, something like that, it changes how we exist in the world, changes what we emanate, changes what we invite others to, changes the energetic vibration or frequency of who we are. And to me, that's probably one of the most attractive undoings in life, is to shift from the not enough to enough, not deserving of love to of course you're loved, that kind of stuff.
In the Soul Growing 2 book, a piece of what I said I wish somebody would have told me when I was 13 was that I was loved, loving, and love itself.
Sure.
And when we get those three, all the other pieces fall into place. You know, if you just like focused on the love, you know, and of course,
love because you are.
Yes, because you are it.
You've earned it. Or love, right.
Because you are love itself.
Yeah.
You know, and then the only thing that's needed is courage. I love that, you know, Maya Angelou says the most important virtue that there is courage, because you can't live any other virtue without it. So this piece about love and courage, I think if we just had that, if everyone just knew they were love itself, how that would change the world.
That's good. Okay, so as usually is the case, now we're in a big old topic here. So I'm wondering, in the scale and context that is this podcast, Juanita, do you have a sort of closing or pausing kind of offering for what is today?
I think for me, I'm letting myself swim in this word deserve and deserving. You know, I've watched several episodes and probably will watch a couple more, because I'm struck by how often they say it in the show, and by how I noticed it, but I made different meaning of it before. And so asking myself, what are the stories I'm telling myself these days, and how do they serve? So the story of deserving, how does it play out in my life? What does it mean about who I am in the world, or how I see me, or how I see others? You know, does that word serve me? And if so, how? And so I would just invite other people into their own inquiry around that.
Yeah, that's good. Yay for the invitation there. I think my closing point is there's an anxiety that I am aware of when I feel like I am swimming in the not deserving story. And I'd like to feel more of those times when I'm not in that anxiety. So a different choice. I think there's more, but that's what I got for today. You good for wrapping it up for today?
Good.
Okay. So thanks to everybody for listening today. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your curiosity, and we appreciate the way you listen and then wonder yourselves. And sometimes that means forwarding or passing along or re-listening, for that matter. I think we're living in a world here where we are needing to hold each other in how we grow more wisely and more soulfully. And sometimes that's in conversation, and sometimes that's in some other things also. But how we evolve who we are as human beings with one another into the stories that we choose. I feel like that's part of what we're talking about today. More information, there's always fireandwaterleadership.weebly.com. That's our shared site for Fire and Water. Juanita is at Isuzu.com. I'm at tennysonwolf.com. Thanks for your attention today.